Here we are in India, the land of the sacred ritual. And I thought as I was here, I would share with you a story about ritual. And this is a folk tale from Orissa in the east of India. And it is a folk tale relating to the Kadam tree, also known as the Kadamba tree. And here we go. Once upon a time, there was a rich merchant, and he had 7 sons and 7 daughters, and each son was married, so he also had 7 daughters-in-law. And one day he was called away on a long journey, and he gathered his family around him and he said to them, I am going away for a long time, and while I'm away I want you all to work as hard as you can, and I want you to double the family's wealth by the time I return. He was a very strict man, and he would not tolerate laziness. Off he set, and his children immediately got to work. The women began washing the masalas and condiments. They began sewing and weaving clothes. And the men, they would take these wares off to the distant markets to sell them. And after a month of doing this, working really, really hard, they looked at the money they had, and they'd still not increased the wealth at all, not even by 1 rupee. What would they do? How would they please the Father? And just as they were worrying about these things, along came a Brahmana, a priest. And he asked them why they were so worried, and they said to him, we cannot increase our fortune no matter how hard we work. Do not fear, he said to them. This is not the way to earn a fortune and to increase your fortunes. The only way to do that is to show reverence to the Kadam Raja and the Kadam Rani, the king and queen of the trees. If you show them reverence, then they will reward you with as much fortune as you need in your life. This sounded great to the children, and so they asked the Brahmana if he would stay with them in their house and teach them the preparations they needed to do for the ritual. The Brahmana agreed, and he stayed with them. And after a month passed, the time had come when the children were ready to do the ritual. They gathered around the Kadam tree, and they built in front of it a shrine. And at the auspicious time, at the signal of the Brahmana, they began to sing and dance and lay flowers and offerings before the shrine to the Raja, the Kadam Raja and the Kadam Rani of the Kadam tree. It was at exactly this time when the trader arrived back home, and the first thing he saw were his children all dancing around and around the tree. What are they doing? He thought. And he assumed that his lazy children had been doing this ever since he left. Oh, he was so angry. He stormed in there, he kicked down the shrine, and he got his axe and he began to hack away at the Kadam tree and sent his children back to work. Well, the Kadam Raja and the Kadam Rani were offended, more offended than they had ever been before. This was not the tree for them, this was not the village for them. And so they left. They left and they went deep, deep into the jungle and found a beautiful Kadam tree there. And that is where they would make their home. And when they left, they took with them the fortune and luck of the village. Back at the village, the merchant watched his children working hard. He worked hard and nothing seemed to make sense. Nothing was a success. Everything they did collapsed. Their business deals fell through. Sickness came to the family. Most of their money went on medicine. And to make matters worse, the last straw, a thief broke into their house and stole the rest of their belongings. They had nothing. And the merchant stood outside his house, his hands on his head, weeping, lamenting, why is this happening to him? And just as that moment, along came the Brahmana once more. Why is this happening to me? Said the merchant. Ah, well, that is obvious. You have offended the Raja Kadam and the Rani Kadam. You must go and bring them back to the village. That is the way your fortune will return. And so, with a heavy heart, the merchant went deep, deep into the jungle until he found the most beautiful Kadam tree he had seen. And he laid an offering of flowers and he bowed before it. And then he made a small cutting of one of the branches and carried it back to the courtyard of his house. And he planted it there. And he gathered everyone round and they began to sing and dance and bow and offer and worship. They did that every day. And soon the Kadam tree grew until it was a big, strong Kadam tree. And when the Kadam tree grew, wealth, prosperity and fortune returned to the family, not just to the family, to the whole village, to the whole community. And from that day forward, to this day, in early December, the people of Orissa in India celebrate a festival to the Kadam tree. And that is the way it is. Thank you.